Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I'm Kyptan, and joining me today we have Little Red Book.
Hello.
Befuddled Panda.
Hi, I'm here.
Ceskyure.
Hey, everybody.
And Hurinfan.
Good to be back.
Awesome. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion of the Murderbot Diaries. Since we were able to secure an advanced reader's copy of the book, the episode will be split into two sections. The first section will not contain spoilers. The second will contain spoilers for the whole series. Okay, let's open it up. Let's talk about general thoughts about this book. I know we all love Murderbot. How did we love Murderbot in this book?
Oh, man. So the third sentence in, and I was like, I am so glad to be back in Murderbot's head. I just love its sass. I just love Murderbot. I'm sorry. Just living in Murderbot's head and hearing its thoughts.
Who wants to talk critically about this book now?
Oh, I have critical things to say.
No, not critical things to say about the book. Let's just engage critical reasoning. Panda.
Wow. Yes, for me, Murderbot has become a comfort, and to have its sass, I really needed it, especially with the heavier books that I've been reading and the longer books. So to be back in Murderbot's head, and we get a lot more of Murderbot's thoughts in this one than I think we did in previous ones. And there are some interesting changes I picked up that I'm excited to talk about.
Okay. Huron?
I also am very glad to be back with Murderbot. Overall, I was slightly disappointed, even though I still would give this 4 out of 5 stars, but compared to the rest of Murderbot's adventures, this was a bit of a step back for me.
Jesky.
So I guess that leaves me. I liked it. I thought I don't know if it was a little too short or a little too long, but I just felt like maybe its size was a little bit off, and that in comparison to the rest of the series, this one feels especially isolated. Like you could pluck it and almost put it anywhere in a different series type. It's very standalone, but not a standalone in my opinion. Like you couldn't actually read it as a standalone, but the story itself could be a standalone story, if that makes sense.
I think that's going to be an interesting topic.
Yeah. I have thoughts.
Should we talk about it then?
Well,
not yet. Not yet. First, I'm going to go off. I really enjoyed this book. I had to remind myself about halfway through exactly where this book stood in the timeline. And I think that if I hadn't done that, I would have disliked this book quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, because I spent the whole book wondering where we were in the timeline, and it was very confusing to me.
Yeah, I'm glad I got clarification at the beginning. I tried not to hold it against the book, but it was difficult.
I did go back and reread certain sections of this book, though, and I really did appreciate it on a reread. So it definitely had that going for me. I do think that there's some nice character moments in here. There's some growth. There's a nice plot that threads the whole thing together. There's some mystery. Mm-hmm. Overall, solid book, but I was definitely affected by coming off of Network Effect.
Yeah, I definitely was. And I, as I was reading it, I'm like, I swear this is way different than where we're supposed to be. And like, what's going to happen? And then I kept thinking, maybe this is a prequel to number 5, or maybe it's just after, or it's a long time after, and then we're going to come back. And so I did look it up, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a prequel. They told us it was a prequel. Like, I should have paid attention to that more.
Yep, they told us that.
So it was all me, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say that this is not my favorite Murderbot book. I'm not sure which is my favorite, but this is definitely probably a 3.5. But I enjoy Murderbot so much that the plotting part didn't bother me. The problems I had with the plot didn't bother me, if that makes sense.
Can we talk about how different it is in terms of structure compared to the other ones? Because this one felt more like, it is a genre book, but it felt more like a murder mystery, and the other ones aren't like that, right?
Definitely a murder mystery, yeah.
Definitely much more police procedural.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that aspect.
It added a destination in mind for the plot, which I don't think we'd had since maybe Exit Strategy. Exit Strategy had a clear goal, which was an exfiltration plan.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that was the goal of that book. And through various steps, it happened. And it was great. And then, we go into Murderbot's mind, but that's kind of like a postscript. And This one felt very much, okay, we set up what needs to happen at the start of this. We finish what needs to happen at the end of it. Stuff happens in the middle. It makes great procedural sense. And it fits into that genre.
It does.
Which is action. It's much more action-y.
Ooh.
I disagree.
No, it's much more Hercule Poirot.
Okay. I'm going to restate what I think of as action. But I did think there was some great action. But no, you're right. Red is dancing. Red is absolutely dancing in video chat right now because I said you're right.
Not something I get to hear very often. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting about this one being a murder, kind of like a murder mystery genre or a sci-fi mystery genre, is that it showed that, at least to me, like Murderbot can be in any, she can change up the genre of any future books if she wanted. Similar to this story, where this one is all about a murder and a mystery. She could do other potential genre mashups in the future with Murderbot, as long as she can set up a nice premise and start for why it wants to do that. But I think that flows really well, that she can kind of really branch off in any direction from here. And I think that's a plus to where she went with it.
This reminds me of, previously I mentioned that to me, Murderbot seems like a TV show, and each novella is an episode of the TV show. And this felt like one of those episodes where it's like, oh, they just had a twist where it's like, it's a procedural, even though normally it's not like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bottle episode.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a bottle episode on a space station.
What I enjoyed about this one, especially, and being a genre within a genre, is that, like Cesky said, I think that if she explored this again and decided to write in another genre, I would be all for it. I'm not a huge fan of police procedurals. It's fine. But what I did enjoy was seeing Murderbot's thought process and the way it thinks during those times. And that's what I really enjoyed about it.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to Kip's comment. What is a bottle episode?
A bottle episode is an episode of a show where all of the action of the plot takes place in, oftentimes it's a single room or a single building. But in this case, it's a space station.
So it's in traditional TV series, they have the episodes. Star Trek is a really good example of this. They have the episodes where they go on planet and all that kind of stuff, and they're big, expensive episodes. But then they need to have a couple cheap episodes, and so they just take place in a small.
God.
Did you watch Breaking Bad? Okay.
So yeah, bottle episodes are built in pieces of interior setting that they already have.
Mm.
You don't need to do a lot of new world building or anything. Just set something in a previously explored space that we've already discussed, already set up, already invested time into. It's a way to reuse an asset in filmmaking.
I had never heard the term.
It's not as bad in literature because in literature you don't have sets.
It doesn't cost you extra money to build to go to a different world in your book.
I mean, it could cost pages.
It does. It does
give
cost
you
pages.
a hand cramp while you're writing. I mean, if
Yeah.
you write longhand.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody does that anymore, but
I was gonna say, I thought when you said bottle episode, that it was an episode you could just in a bottle, you could take it out of the story and you don't miss much.
well, that's also kind of what they do.
That is kind of it too. You can have big character development moments in bottle episodes, but often you tend not to. So Community had an excellent bottle episode. Sorry, this is off topic. This is off topic. We're getting cut.
Deviations.
Panda, did you watch that episode of Community?
Question mark. I am not sure.
Okay, it's the one where they're inside the room and Annie freaks out about her pen getting stolen.
Not ringing a bell. But
Okay.
now I know what it means.
We're so
thank
off
you.
topic.
I'm cutting all of this. It's fine.
No, keep it in.
No, leave it in. It's gold. This is gold.
Okay. Fine. Fine. We can
Me yelling.
moving away from the bottle episode, which is kind of what a prequel has to be. It has to fit into a world that has already been established and not disrupt anything too badly. And when you don't have a huge amount of time and when your character develops as slowly as Murderbot does, and it takes severely traumatic events to make Murderbot change its mind about things, then a bottle episode really isn't allowed to change all that much.
Maybe more could have been done if this had been placed in a different spot rather than right with 2 books on either side of it. If it had been
Yes.
pre-number 1, then I think maybe you'd have more leverage or more opportunity for growth. Obviously, if it was the last book, you'd have more room for growth. But
I think also placing it between, in my opinion, the 2 best books in the series, with lots of character development in each book, might have not been the best choice.
Perhaps.
Actually, yeah.
I do like the place that it fills in the series. I do like the intermediate steps that it's showing of character growth. I like how Murderbot is able to Murderbot's on a swing of going from like fearing to loving. And it's an intermediate step, and I enjoy it for what it is.
Do you think that this could have been read without reading other books in the series?
No, I do not, because we do not have enough context, for example, the Corporation Rim or in order to have this stand on its own. Yep.
Yeah.
This was barely mentioned. You don't have to know about.
I mean,
I
a
think
little
you
bit.
do.
I think
you need to know.
You need to know why. Oh, sorry.
I disagree.
you think
Why?
it can be read alone?
I think because it's a genre within a genre that people who maybe are interested in Murderbot, but they don't want to. They want to get a entry point in a genre that they're more familiar with, and since it does really fill those beats pretty well, that it'd be a good. I mean, maybe with a little more context.
Don't think they would get as much enjoyment out of it. It might actually be kind of boring.
I feel like you'd be missing way too much early, just like, here's who Murderbot is, here's the situation it's in. Because without that, I don't think it talks very much about the governor modules. If it mentions them at all, you just know it's a thing it doesn't have. And I think you'd be missing too much of that really necessary context.
Yeah.
And the prejudice against Murderbot as a sec unit, like that wouldn't make sense unless you had.
I think that those are fine. I think that to Huron's point, you could absolutely read this as a standalone and you would understand what's going on. You wouldn't have a level of emotional connection, though, to what's going on. We're really invested in these characters at this point. We have understandings about just how brutally awful the Corporation Rim is. We know things like that. And removing our prior knowledge of those things really would have robbed the book of a lot of richness of emotional responses from us.
I think if Fugitive Telemetry had been the only novella in a series of novels, then it would work as a standalone, I think. A little better, at least. Because then, like Hurinfan saying, it's an easier way to introduce people to a series without getting too... Like, here's a big, thick book. Here's just a small novella. Then it would kind of help set them up. But I wouldn't want to give them 6 because that's in the middle of the series. And it's going to kind of, like, tell what's going to happen. But just, I think it'd be easier if it was the only novella in the series.
I think that's like rewriting the series so much that it's really hard to draw conclusions out of. Like that is a far alternate reality that I don't know.
I don't know.
Let me put it this way.
I understand what Chesky's saying.
Yeah.
I would not recommend this one as an entry point for anybody for the Murderbot Diaries. I don't think
I would not either.
Yeah.
Nope.
And the first one is so short that it is just an excellent. I mean, it's like, what, 4 hours long to read? Something like that?
Well, like, if your recommendation is that novellas are easier to listen to, the first one's a novella. Start there.
Yeah, exactly.
If I knew somebody was into police procedural or murder mysteries and I wanted them to read the series, I would start with this one. But otherwise, no, I would not recommend this to be the starting point in almost all cases.
The reason why I asked that question is because, like, how it's marketed, it says it's a standalone adventure. And I feel like that's kind of doing the book a little disservice.
I think it absolutely is a standalone adventurer, but it's not. That's not for people like us.
What is that for the plebes?
Well, it's for people who don't care as much about spoilers. It's for people who don't care as much about spoilers.
I don't care about spoilers, and I still wouldn't start with this.
I think there's a difference between just saying it's a standalone book and saying
that it should be your starting point. Yeah.
And or that it's like this book is separate from basically all of the other series. Like, you don't technically have to really read the other ones. But if you do read it, it's just extra. So it's kind of like a standalone adventure for Murderbot, but it's also in the series. It made sense in my head a few seconds ago.
I think I understand what you mean.
Like,
let's talk about it a slightly different way. Does this book, if you don't read it, detract anything from the series?
No.
Very minorly.
I'd say absolutely not.
Okay, so it's a standalone.
Fine.
Now Kip can dance because he's right.
I don't dance when I'm right. Come on.
Nobody said the magic words. We just
he'd be dancing all the time, right?
I need to have some time to relax. Jeez.
Oh my lord.
I don't think the character development was strictly 100% necessary to read to be able to go on with the series, but I do think it was nice to see, and you get a little bit more of an understanding of why certain people dislike him in this one, and then why it continues kind of on in the next one. And it's very minor, like it doesn't really matter, but it is there.
I actually noticed a lot more this time on people being nice to Murderbot, and then Murderbot kind of responding poorly.
In the Murderbot fashion.
In a Murderbot fashion. Okay.
I mean, the prejudice was obviously there, but there were more moments I noticed where people were treating it like a person.
Okay, let's go to part 2 of this book series.
Wait.
Oh,
Sorry.
you got something else?
Yeah, so I think what we're all saying is, oh my god, I cannot keep a straight face. So what we're all saying is that our recommendation would be that book 6, Fugitive Telemetry, is something that you don't have to read. Like, don't start with this one, and you don't necessarily have to read it, like, to enjoy the series. But if you really like Murderbot, then do read this book.
And read it right after book 4.
Yes.
And read it after book 4.
I would say you don't even have to love Murderbot. You can just like Murderbot.
Yeah, you can just like Murderbot. Read this after 4. You'll be very happy, and you won't notice anything wrong.
Right?
So
like we all did.
We recommend this book.
We recommend this book. Yep.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
I absolutely recommend this book. There's no way I'm going to read this book again. I'm going to read it like 3 or 4 more times. I know that.
I'm so excited for when the audio comes out and I can listen to it while I count money at work.
I love the audiobook narrator.
He is great. He's really great.
Okay. So thank you for joining us today on the Legendarium Green Team. I hope you've enjoyed our spoiler-free review. We have a lot more to say about this book, and you'll get to hear the full episode once Fugitive Telemetry is released to the public. Please join the Legendarium Discord or Reddit to yell at us about what we got wrong. That might be a lot this episode. Or shout out to @GreenTeamPod on Twitter. If you're an exceptionally generous and kind soul, please donate to the Legendarium on Patreon. Until next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.